The Parisian Auction. The sun hung low in the sky over Paris, casting a golden glow on the city's timeless architecture. Sophie Dubois stood on the steps of the Hotel Drouot, one of the most famous auction houses in France. Today was a special day, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her. Inside, priceless antiques, rare artifacts, and centuries-old art pieces were about to go under the hammer. Among them was something Sophie had dreamed of for years, a rare painting by a relatively unknown but brilliant 19th-century French artist, Claude Leclerc. Sophie was an art historian, passionate about forgotten artists whose work had been lost to time. She had spent years researching Leclerc, discovering that he had painted only a handful of pieces before vanishing from the art world. His most celebrated work, The Enchanted Garden, had been missing for over a century. When Sophie learned that it had been rediscovered and was being auctioned off today, she knew she had to be there. She adjusted her silk scarf nervously and took a deep breath before walking into the grand auction hall. The room was filled with wealthy collectors, art dealers, and a few curious onlookers, all mingling beneath crystal chandeliers that sparkled in the afternoon light. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, and the air was thick with the scent of polished wood and freshly brewed espresso. Sophie glanced at the auction catalog she held in her hands. The Enchanted Garden was listed as Lot 18, right after a series of exquisite marble sculptures. Her heart raced as she looked at the black and white photograph of the painting, its intricate details barely visible on the glossy page. She had seen the painting only once before, in a photograph taken decades ago. To think she was about to witness it in person and maybe, just maybe, take it home felt surreal. "Are you planning to bid on something special?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. Sophie turned to see a tall man with dark hair and sharp features standing beside her. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, holding his own auction catalog casually in one hand. His eyes sparkled with curiosity as he glanced at her. "Yes, actually," Sophie replied, trying to sound confident. "I've come for a painting, The Enchanted Garden." The man raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "Ah, Claude Leclerc. A fine choice. But I must warn you, you'll have competition. Quite a few people have their eyes on that piece." Sophie felt a flutter of anxiety but smiled politely. "I'm sure they do. It's a remarkable work." "I'm Julien Dupont," he said, offering his hand. "Art dealer and occasional collector." "Sophie Dubois," she replied, shaking his hand. "Art historian. I've been researching Leclerc for years." "Then you know its true value," Julien said, his tone respectful. "Most people here are after the prestige of owning a rare piece. But you understand the artist." Sophie felt a sense of camaraderie in Julien's words. There was something about his easy charm and obvious passion for art that put her at ease. But she reminded herself that this was an auction, and even though they shared an appreciation for art, they were still competitors. The auction began, and one by one, the items were presented. Sculptures, vases, and rare books were snapped up by eager bidders, and the prices soared higher with each sale. Sophie sat quietly, her fingers tapping the armrest of her chair in nervous anticipation. Finally, the auctioneer announced Lot 18. "Next, we present The Enchanted Garden by Claude Leclerc, an exceptional piece from the 19th century, recently rediscovered. Starting bid, €50,000. The room fell silent as the painting was unveiled. Sophie's breath caught in her throat as she gazed at it. The painting was even more beautiful than she had imagined. A mystical garden bathed in soft, ethereal light, with delicate flowers blooming under the branches of ancient trees. In the center stood a woman in a flowing dress, her face serene as she gazed into the distance. The colors were rich and vibrant, as if the painting had been frozen in time. 50,000. A voice called from the back of the room. Sophie's heart raced as she raised her paddle. 55,000. The auctioneer nodded. 55,000. Do I hear 60? Another bidder jumped in. 60. The bidding war had begun. Sophie's pulse quickened as the price climbed higher and higher. She could see Julian out of the corner of her eye, and true to his word, he placed a bid as well. 70,000. Sophie raised her paddle again, her voice firm. 75,000. The room buzzed with excitement as the bids came fast and fierce. Julian glanced at her with a smile, clearly impressed by her determination. 80,000, he called out. Sophie bit her lip, feeling the pressure. She knew her budget was limited, but she also knew this painting was worth every euro. With a deep breath, she raised her paddle once more. 85,000. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the hall. 85,000. Going once, going twice. Julian hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over his paddle. Then, with a slight nod, he placed it down on his lap, surrendering the bid. Sold. To the lady for 85,000 euros. Sophie felt a rush of relief and disbelief as the auctioneer's gavel came down. She had done it. She had won the enchanted garden. The room erupted into polite applause, and Sophie barely noticed as she stood up, her legs trembling slightly. "Congratulations," Julian said, approaching her with a warm smile. "You fought well." "Thank you," Sophie replied, still in shock. "I can't believe it's mine." "You deserve it," Julian said sincerely. "And now that it's in good hands, I'm sure Leclerc's work will get the recognition it deserves." Sophie nodded, her mind already racing with plans for the painting. She would organize an exhibition, publish her research, and finally share Leclerc's brilliance with the world. As they left the auction house, Julian walked with her, the conversation flowing easily between them. He offered to help her with contacts in the art world, suggesting galleries that might be interested in hosting the exhibition. Sophie was grateful for his generosity, and despite their rivalry in the auction, she felt a genuine connection with him. As they strolled through the streets of Paris, the city's lights twinkling above them, Sophie realized something unexpected. This day, which had begun with her singular focus on acquiring a painting, had turned into something much more. She had not only secured a piece of art she had dreamed of for years, but she had also made a friend, perhaps even a collaborator, in Julian. The night air was cool as they walked along the Seine, the soft glow of the street lamps reflecting on the water. Paris, with its beauty and history, felt more magical than ever. And as Sophie looked ahead to the future, she knew that this was just the beginning. The painting, her research, and the new possibilities that lay before her were all part of an adventure she had never anticipated. In the heart of Paris, surrounded by art, history, and new friendships, Sophie felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had found not just a forgotten masterpiece, but a new path, one filled with promise, excitement, and the unshakable belief that anything was possible.
Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and share our channel Magic Mingle with your friends to enjoy more magical stories.